Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to be taking a look at some brand new settings that have been added to RPCS3, this PlayStation 3 emulator, in the past few weeks. So in this video we're going to be using Uncharted Drake's Fortune as our game for testing these new settings. I'm simply going to right click on it and come to configure, and when you come to the CPU tab you should see that this LLVM Recompiler now has this brand new setting, Accurate Xfloat. When we hover over this setting, you can see that it fixes bugs in various games at the cost of performance. This setting is only applied when SPU LLVM is active. So as we move across and we turn on ASM JIT Recompiler, you can see that this Accurate Xfloat option is no longer available for us to use. So in our first gameplay run through, we're going to be using LLVM Recompiler, but we're not going to be using Accurate Xfloat because I want to see what kind of a performance impact this brand new setting has. So let's just leave this off, make sure the rest of our settings are correct, come to GPU, and yes, everything looks correct here, so let's just click save, and we are now going to boot Uncharted Drake's Fortune. For anybody who has experience using LLVM Recompiler, it can take quite a large amount of time to build your SPU cache, so I just wanted to make you guys fully aware of this. If you were using ASM JIT, it would basically build this SPU cache straight away, and you would straight away get into your compiling of your pre-compiled shader cache. So let's just wait for this to finish, and you can see, there we go, loading our pre-compiled shaders from disk. So let's just load through all of these menus and try to get ourselves into some actual gameplay. So let's just press X and we're going to load through all of these initial splash screens and try to get ourselves into the title menu of Uncharted. And here we are, we're now loaded into the title menu. We're just going to come to chapter select, and we're going to do the majority of our testing in chapter 2, the search for El Dorado. Let's just select our save slot and get ourselves loaded into gameplay. So now we're in gameplay, and you're going to see that we are going to be missing quite a bit of the rendered graphics on some of the character models in game. As you can see, Drake is missing the majority of his upper arms and should be missing, yep, you can see the majority of his upper legs also. So for now, we're just going to ignore this, and we're going to be trying to at least concentrate on the performance numbers in the top left-hand corner of our window. You can see that we're running anywhere between 28 to 30 frames per second at least in this introduction area, and we want to just basically get a metric for performance in these areas in Uncharted. So let's just continue through this area, and you can see that it's holding fairly solidly at around 30 frames per second. So I'm just going to stop here and see what our performance is like when we pan our camera. Usually you do get frame rate drops when you look over towards this grove area, and you can see we get drops down to about 26 and 27 frames per second, but it's nothing too bad, to be honest. So let's just proceed through this area, and once we get to this palm leaf, we're going to enter our cutscene. Now, I'm not going to make you guys watch the cutscenes, so I'm just going to hit start and skip this movie, and we're going to proceed into this next Temple Ruins area where we're going to see some frame drops, and what we're going to do is try to monitor what our minimum frame rate is in this area. Okay, so let's now monitor it, and we are looking like our lowest frame rate is around 21 frames per second, which, to be honest, is actually an improvement over the last time I played this game on RPCS3 using this exact LLVM Recompiler. When we look back towards this performant demanding area, you can see our frame rate generally hangs in and around 21 to 22 frames per second, and it jumps straight up to 30 once we look back towards the outer area. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to stop the emulation by just clicking X. I'm going to come back to Uncharted Drake's Fortune's configure settings, and now I'm going to turn on this Accurate Xfloat setting for the LLVM Recompiler, click save, and reload my game. So once again, it is going to do the exact same thing that it previously did. It's going to have to completely rebuild my SPU cache. So let's wait on this to completely build and get ourselves back into our in-game menus. Okay, so here we are back in our title screen where we're going to have to click X and we're going to have to load through all of these splash screens again. I do apologize, but in these kind of performance videos, I like to show live gameplay and I don't generally like to speed up too much footage if I can help it. So once again, I'm just going to click continue so we get back to the area just before the performance demanding area at the temple ruins. And here we are loaded back into gameplay using LLVM, Recompiler and Xfloat, and you can see that all of the rendering on both of the character models is now completely fixed using this new setting. So basically what you have just seen is exactly what this Xfloat setting is going to do. It's going to fix broken render output, but what we are looking for in this area is just exactly how much of a performance impact it is having on our gameplay. So already by just looking at the frame rate counter, I can tell that we are about 2 or 3 frames per second lower. Yes, you can see that where previously we were at 21 to 22 frames per second, we are getting drops down to about 17 and 18, even though we do jump straight back up to 30 when we look at the back wall area. So what I also want to do now is test exactly how much of a performance difference there is when using LLVM Recompiler with this Xfloat against the main recompiler that most people use at this point in time, ASM JIT. So I'm just going to switch to ASM JIT Recompiler. I'm going to leave all of these settings as they are. I'm going to just make sure, yep, everything is exactly as we previously had it, and we're once again going to boot into Uncharted and see what performance is like using the ASM JIT Recompiler. So once again, we're in this menu. Let's just skip through. Let's just wait through all of these splash screens. I'm going to skip any I can. Once again, I do apologize, but I want to do this as live as possible. And now that we're in the menus, we're just going to select continue once again, and we're going to load back into that exact same Grove area and see what our performance is like. So let's just wait through the coin spin, and here we are, we're back in gameplay. Our performance is very similar to what we were seeing on LLVM, but we are mainly going to want to see what it is in this temple ruins area, and we're going to basically see if we're going to get the same drops down to around 17 and 18. Now, when we came in there, you could see that we did drop down to a lower frame rate than we were seeing on the LLVM with Xfloat turned on. So let's just get to this main area where we are previously testing and take a look towards the center, and where previously we were dropping down to around 18 frames per second, our lowest here is around 19, you can see, and we do indeed get 30 frames per second when we look towards the back wall. So even though we are getting slightly lower performance in Uncharted Drake's Fortune, it is still pretty cool to see that they are constantly working on these new features. For anybody who's not aware, this LLVM Recompiler, as it says in its menu description, is very, very experimental and hasn't even been a part of RPCS3's main releases and master builds. I'm pretty sure it's only been there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and when it was added at first, it was so buggy that practically no games worked with it, and practically it was impossible nearly to do any kind of compatibility testing in any games like this. And the fact that it is now working in such an awesome fashion and has these cool new settings like the Xfloat setting that fixes all of the rendering issues we were previously seeing just goes to show you how much work these developers are putting into this emulator. So in the description of this video, you will find a link to the Patreon page for RPCS3. You can head on over there, and if you pledge to support them, they actually have some pretty cool tiers for support. So I myself am donating $10, so you get access to like special support for any of your games if you need any specialist help, and they also do very, very frequent updates. So they will basically, you'll get like an email once you pledge to support them, and they'll give you like some info on what they're working on, and they give you some very detailed descriptions on new features and new functions that are coming to the emulator in the coming days, weeks and months. They generally don't have a roadmap for development. It's kind of impossible, to be honest, to have a roadmap for an emulator's development due to the fact that if you hit a snag in development and if something gets slowed down, you generally just don't want to disappoint the people who love to use your emulator and just having to put back new features. So generally how they develop stuff, I believe, is once a new feature or function is ready, they just straight away release it. And for anybody who's also not aware, RPCS3 is a completely open source emulator, so if you are good at coding or if you are willing to help them in its development, I'm sure that they would also be willing to accept your help. So if you also want to help to support me as a YouTube channel, you can also find a link to the BSoD Gaming Patreon down in the description of this video also. As I always say, it is 100% not required, but if you feel like dropping me a pledge to support the channel, that would also be highly appreciated. So once again guys, cheers for checking out this video. I hope you found it in some way insightful or informative. Remember to like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see all future videos from me.